The Grand Hall of the Union of Sovereign Worlds was a space designed to command awe. Massive pillars of polished stone rose to a vaulted ceiling, their surfaces inscribed with the histories of ancient civilizations. A ring of diplomats from across the galaxy sat at a long crescent-shaped table, their eyes fixed on the lone figure standing before them, Ambassador Paul Connors of the Terran Empire. Connors stood still, his broad frame cloaked in a dark, austere uniform that bore the insignia of humanity's unified empire. His face was expressionless, unreadable, as his gaze swept the room, unyielding. Around him, alien representatives shifted uncomfortably. Some, with skin the color of molten copper or eyes like swirling nebulae, barely met his gaze. Others openly glared, their hostility thinly veiled. Connors did not flinch. His posture remained calm, almost indifferent, as though he had expected nothing less from the assembled powers. At the center of the table, Chairman Uvelin of the Ranthi, a species known for their ancient wisdom, cleared his throat. His voice, though soft, commanded attention. Ambassador Connors, we are honored by your presence on this momentous day, when the Terran Empire joins the Union of Sovereign Worlds. He offered a nod, but his pale, elongated features betrayed a deep-seated tension. The words, carefully chosen, hung in the air as he paused, searching for a response that never came. Uvelin shifted in his seat. Holding up a polished tablet, he gestured to the document etched into its surface. The terms of our agreement have been negotiated. Now, we move to the final step, ratification by all members of the Union. It would be my honor to be the first to welcome your empire formally. Uvelin signed the treaty, his slender hand tracing the seal of the Ranthi Dominion with deliberate precision. The document moved down the line. One by one, the representatives added their marks, some with murmured remarks about the newfound alliance, others signing silently, their gestures stiff with reluctance. The air thickened with the weight of unspoken tensions, as if each signature was a reluctant concession to a new and unpredictable force in the galaxy. Then the document reached Governor Zalrix of the Draclian Dominion, his reptilian face, scarred and twisted in anger, contorted as he seized the tablet, his claws digging into its edge. With a snarl, Zalrix flung the treaty across the table. It clattered loudly, coming to rest near Connor's feet. How can we consider these barbarians our equals? Zalrix hissed, his voice dripping with venom. They are savages. They burned entire generations of my people. Our nursery planets, reduced to ash. The room fell into a stunned silence. Uvelin glanced between Zalrix and Connors, his mouth half open, searching for words to defuse the situation. Governor Zalrix, Uvelin began slowly. We have already agreed. You agreed. Zalrix's voice cut through the hall like a blade. His gaze swept the room, eyes narrowing in contempt as he surveyed the other delegates. None of you felt what we felt. None of you lost what we lost. He turned his ire to Connors, baring sharp teeth. You slaughtered millions, entire broods unborn, and now you stand here, expecting us to welcome you into this union. Connors did not move. His voice, when it came, was low, almost a whisper, but it carried with it the weight of unyielding finality. You attacked Earth. Zalrix blinked, his rage momentarily faltering. A few 100,000 humans at most, he spat back. A mere skirmish. You responded by annihilating my people. You attacked Earth, Connors repeated, his tone unchanged. He stepped forward, his boots echoing in the hall as he moved deliberately toward Zalrix. We were a fractured species, divided by borders and petty conflicts. Then you attacked Earth. In that moment, we became one, our nations, our corporations, united by a common enemy. You gave us no choice. The silence in the room deepened as Connors bent down, retrieving the fallen treaty. His movements were slow, deliberate, as though each gesture held the weight of his people's collective resolve. He placed the document back on the table, pushing it toward Zalrix with a forceful thrust that made several delegates flinch. These rules, Connor said, were made to save us from ourselves. But they were never meant to protect those who threatened our homeworld. Sign the treaty, Governor Zalrix, or learn firsthand why we created these rules in the first place. Zalrix hesitated, his clawed hand trembling as it hovered over the treaty. His eyes darted around the room, searching for support, but found none. With a low growl of resentment, he signed, his hand shaking with barely contained fury. Connor stepped back, straightening his posture. "Good," he said simply. "It seems my business here is concluded." Without another word, he turned and walked toward the door. The hall remained deathly quiet as the heavy doors closed behind him, leaving the gathered diplomats in uneasy silence, the weight of his warning still pressing upon them. The atmosphere in the grand hall grew more charged as Ambassador Connors continued to stand in front of the table, his presence like a dark storm on the horizon. Every alien representative felt it, an invisible force that sent a chill through the air. The silence after Zalrix's bitter words hung heavy in the room, broken only by the hum of distant machinery and the rustle of uneasy movements. All eyes remained fixed on the human ambassador, waiting for his response. "You attacked Earth," Connors repeated, each word delivered with cold precision, as though stating a self-evident truth. His gaze bore into Governor Zalrix, locking the Draclian in place. The words were simple, but the weight behind them silenced the reptilian's angry hisses. Zalrix's long tail twitched in agitation, his reptilian face contorting with fury, but there was a hesitation in his eyes. "A few 100,000 human lives at most," Zalrix sneered, his voice dripping with contempt, though the venom lacked its earlier force. "And for that, you wiped out generations of my kind. Entire broods, unborn, snuffed out before they could even hatch. How dare you claim righteousness in this madness?" Connor stepped forward with deliberate, controlled movements. His broad frame cast a shadow over the table as he leaned in, his knuckles pressed against the surface, forcing Zalrix to sit back instinctively. "You attacked Earth," he said again, this time his voice laced with an undercurrent of menace. "Do you think we wanted this? You looked at us, a fractured race on the verge of annihilating ourselves, and saw weakness. You believed you could crush us without consequence." Zalrix recoiled, his eyes narrowing into slits. "Weakness?" he hissed, trying to regain control. "We did what any species would do. We saw an opportunity. A primitive race, untested in the galaxy. It was our right." "You're right," Connors interrupted, the word a razor-sharp edge that cut through Zalrix's defense. He straightened, his posture no longer one of diplomacy, but of a predator who had heard enough excuses. "Let me tell you about humanity's history, Governor. We spent centuries tearing ourselves apart, war after war, slaughtering millions of our own, ravaging entire continents, driving species to extinction on our own world. We created rules of war to stop ourselves from becoming our own executioners. But none of those rules were ever meant to protect an alien aggressor." Connor's voice, though quiet, resonated with a deep, cold fury that chilled the hall. The other diplomat sat frozen, watching as the tension between the two figures thickened, filling the room with an almost unbearable weight. "Before your attack, we were fractured," Connors continued, his eyes never leaving Zalrix. "Divided by nations, companies, ideologies. Then you gave us a common enemy. You united us. All of humanity, for the first time in our history, focused their entire might on one thing: survival. Your mistake, Governor, was thinking we could be broken. You thought you were dealing with just another species in your long history of conquest." Zalrix let out a low, angry growl. "You are a barbaric species, Ambassador. You burned our nursery planets, our most sacred worlds." "Nursery planets," Connors interrupted again, his voice like ice. "Breeding grounds for your future armies, ready to conquer worlds that would never see you coming. You attacked Earth unprovoked, and we responded." Zalrix's claws tapped nervously against the table as he sought words to counter, but nothing came. His earlier confidence seemed to be unraveling, the fire in his eyes dimming as he stared into Connor's unflinching gaze. Connors took another step forward, his voice lowering to a dangerous whisper that only Zalrix could hear. We could have done worse. You know that. We could have wiped your entire species from existence. But we didn't. And that was mercy, Zalrix. Something your kind would never have shown us. The silence in the hall was suffocating now, the other diplomats watching the exchange with growing unease. Even Yuvalin, the calm and measured chairman, shifted uncomfortably in his seat, recognizing the delicate balance of power tipping toward a dangerous precipice. Connor stood back and straightened his uniform. This treaty, he said, gesturing to the document on the table, is the only thing keeping us bound by the same rules you claim to hold dear. Without it, without this fragile agreement, you will see what we are capable of when there are no rules. For the first time, Zalrix broke eye contact. His gaze fell to the floor, his claws retracting as his posture slumped. In a reluctant, almost defeated gesture, he nodded. I understand, he muttered, though the words tasted bitter in his mouth. Connors gave a single, firm nod, as if acknowledging the silent surrender. He turned toward the door. The weight of his presence still felt long after he moved away. Remember this, Governor Zalrix, he said without looking back. You attacked Earth, and we will never forget. With that, Connors left the hall, leaving the diplomats in stunned silence, their minds racing with the implications of what had just transpired. The fragile peace they had fought so hard to secure now felt like a thin veil over a volatile, uncontrollable storm. The heavy doors of the grand hall slid shut behind Ambassador Connors, leaving a hollow silence in his wake. For a moment, none of the alien diplomats moved or spoke, as though they were still trapped under the humans' imposing presence. Governor Zalrix sat frozen, his clawed hand still resting on the treaty he had signed under duress. His scaled lips twitched with barely contained fury, but he did not dare utter another word. Chairman Yuvalin, the elder Ranthi leader, was the first to break the stillness. With a long, weary breath, he leaned back in his chair, rubbing his wrinkled forehead with one trembling hand. His silver eyes, dulled with the weight of centuries, swept across the table to assess the remaining council members. Well, he said softly, his voice carrying an air of resignation, it is done. One of the diplomats, a slender, insectoid figure from the plenary species, clicked his mandibles in nervous agreement. Done, yes, he echoed, though his compound eyes still darted around the room, unsettled. But at what cost, Chairman? These humans, their aggression, their capacity for destruction, they are unlike any species we have encountered before. Yuvalin nodded slowly. Indeed, they are unlike any other. But we must now learn to live with them. His voice carried the weight of a man who had seen too many conflicts, too many failed negotiations. He spoke as though the decision had been final long before the treaty was even discussed. Zalrix's claws scraped against the table, his slitted eyes narrowing as he regained some semblance of control. His tail coiled tightly behind him, a sign of barely contained rage. Live with them? You speak as though they are civilized. They are not. They are rabid beasts, Chairman. He spat the words, his voice trembling with anger. That human, Connors, you saw it in his eyes. He wanted us to challenge him. He wanted a reason to unleash his empire on the galaxy again. Another diplomat, a feathered avian from the Siraxi species, flapped his wings uneasily. Governor Zalrix may not be wrong. The Terran Empire is young, but their technology and military strength are unmatched for a species so new to the galactic stage. They grow too quickly. It's as though their wars have given them a hunger they cannot quench. Yuvalin raised a hand to silence them. Enough. His voice, though calm, carried a finality that hushed the murmuring diplomats. We do not have the luxury to debate humanity's nature. The treaty has been signed. The Terran Empire is now a part of the Union of Sovereign Worlds. Zalrix slammed his hand on the table, his rage breaking through. For how long, Chairman? How long until they turn on us? You think this treaty binds them? You think it will stop them? They burned our worlds, Chairman. Entire broods gone, And for what? For an attack that claimed a fraction of their people. Yuvalin's eyes narrowed, his patience wearing thin. It is precisely because of what they did that we must keep them close. Humanity is dangerous, yes, but it is better they are part of this union, bound by its laws, than left outside it where they would have no constraints. Zalrix's scaly lips curled into a snarl. You believe they can be tamed, but you did not see what I saw. You did not lose what I lost. They will spread, and when they do, we will be too late. A tense silence followed his words, hanging in the air like a poisonous cloud. Some of the diplomats shifted uncomfortably, exchanging worried glances, but none of them dared to challenge the chairman's decision outright. Yuvalin let out another weary sigh and spoke in a softer tone. I understand your pain, Zalrix. I do. But the Union cannot afford a war with the Terran Empire. Not now, not ever. Their retaliation against the Draclians was swift, brutal, and complete. Imagine what they would do if they felt truly cornered. Zalrix glared at him, but said nothing. The Draclian governor's posture remained rigid, his anger simmering just below the surface. His distrust of humanity was palpable, and Yuvalin knew it would not fade with time. But the Union needed peace, and peace required compromise, even if it meant dealing with a species as volatile as the humans. We must focus on the future, Yuvalin continued, his voice firm but measured. For now, the Terrans are bound by the same laws as the rest of us. They are under our watch, and if they prove themselves to be the threat you claim they are, we will act, but not today, not while the Union is fragile. Another silence fell over the hall, this one more subdued, more resigned. The Union diplomats understood the gravity of their situation, even if they did not agree with Yuvalin's approach. Humanity's rise had shaken the galaxy's balance of power, and none of them could predict what the future held. Zalrix stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Mark my words, Chairman, he growled. These humans will be the death of us all, and when that day comes, I will remind you of this moment. With that, the Draclian governor stormed out of the room, leaving behind a heavy sense of foreboding. The remaining diplomats exchanged uneasy glances before slowly dispersing, each lost in their own thoughts about the uncertain future that now awaited them. Yuvalin remained seated, staring at the empty space where Connors had stood. His ancient eyes betrayed the fear he had worked so hard to conceal. Perhaps, he whispered to no one in particular, Zalrix is right after all. The atmosphere aboard the Vigilance, the Terran Empire's flagship, was thick with tension as Ambassador Connors stared out into the vastness of space. The shimmering light of distant stars reflected off the cold, polished metal of the observation deck, casting a faint glow on the face of the man who had just shaken the foundations of the Union of Sovereign Worlds. Connors stood alone, his hands clasped behind his back, a stoic figure against the backdrop of the galaxy. The treaty was signed and the Terran Empire was now officially part of the Union. But Connors knew better than anyone that this peace was tenuous, fragile, like a knife's edge waiting to tip in either direction. He replayed the events of the day in his mind, the fear in the eyes of the diplomats, the hostility barely concealed by some, and the rage of Governor Zalrix. It had all unfolded as expected. Footsteps echoed behind him, and Connors did not turn as Commander Raylon approached, his second-in-command, and one of the few men whose judgment Connors trusted implicitly. Ambassador, Raylan's voice was low but steady. We receive word from the Intelligence Division. Their reporting increased military activity among the Draclian forces. It appears Governor Zalrix is already pushing for new defenses. Connors nodded, his expression unchanged. He would be a fool not to, he said, his voice calm but carrying an underlying menace. The Draclians know we've given them no reason to trust us, and they have given us no reason to forget. Commander Raylon stepped forward, standing beside the ambassador. His dark eyes, sharp and calculating, reflected the same cold intensity that marked every soldier of the Terran Empire. Governor Zalrix won't stop. He's too blinded by his losses. He'll rally those who feel the same, the ones who still see us as barbarians. He'll make it his life's mission to bring down the Empire. Connors allowed a small, grim smile to curve his lips. He can try, but the Union is fractured, and they know it. Any open conflict with us will weaken them beyond repair. The Ranthi and the Siraxi see that. They will resist Zalrix's calls for war as long as they can. Raylan's brow furrowed. And what if they don't? What if he convinces enough of them that we are the true threat? Connors turned away from the stars, finally facing his commander. Then they will learn, as the Draklians did, what it means to provoke humanity. The cold certainty in Connors' voice sent a chill through the room, but Raylon remained unfazed. He had served under Connors for years, through countless battles that had brought the Terran Empire to where it was now. He knew his commander well enough to understand that the ambassador's calm exterior hid a deep reservoir of ruthlessness, a ruthlessness that had shaped the Empire's meteoric rise. We must not be complacent, Connors continued, pacing slowly across the observation deck. The Union may be fractured, but they are still dangerous. And Zalrix, for all his rage, is no fool. He will not act alone. He will bide his time, rallying others to his cause until he is strong enough to challenge us. The Draklians are rebuilding, but so are we. We must remain vigilant. Raylon nodded in agreement, but his thoughts lingered on the broader implications. If Zalrix does manage to unite a coalition against us, we could be facing a war that spans the entire galaxy. And not just skirmishes like before, but full-scale conflict on a scale we haven't seen. Connors' gaze sharpened. If that happens, Commander, we will do what we have always done. We will win. We will burn their worlds if necessary. The Terran Empire will not be threatened. Not by the Union, not by Zalrix, and not by anyone. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken meaning. Connors did not need to elaborate. The message was clear. The Terran Empire had survived its baptism by fire, and if it came to war again, it would emerge victorious, no matter the cost. After a long pause, Raylon broke the silence. What of the Union's leadership? Chairman Yuvalin seems to think we can be tamed. He believes we can be bound by their rules. Connors let out a quiet chuckle, though there was no humor in it. Yuvalin is a man of peace. He will cling to the hope of diplomacy until his dying breath. But deep down, even he knows the truth. Humanity cannot be tamed. We are too dangerous, too unpredictable. They have no choice but to accept us into their union, because the alternative is far worse. Raylon exhaled sharply, understanding the weight of Connors' words. So we wait then? Prepare for what's coming. Connors nodded, his eyes once again drifting to the stars. Yes, Commander, we wait, but we do not wait idly. The galaxy will soon learn that humanity's reach extends far beyond Earth. And when the time comes, we will be ready. The two men stood in silence, watching the endless expanse of space before them. The stars glittered with the promise of conflict, of expansion, of the unknown. But within that vast darkness, one truth remained constant. The Terran Empire was no longer a mere participant in the galactic order. It was a growing force, a rising threat. And the galaxy would never be the same.